Today, we're talking the top buys and sells for fantasy football ahead of week 2. And when you're making your deals this week, be sure to use our trade calculator at yardsperfantasy.com. It's fully customizable, it's free to use, and you'll never lose a trade again. Find it now at yardsperfantasy.com/trade-calculator. Fantasy managers who use an early pick on Bijan Robinson are probably feeling a little uneasy right now. While his 16.1 fantasy points in week 1 were totally fine, it certainly wasn't what was expected and what was hyped up to be a much improved situation. I mean, Kirk Cousins looked bad and the offense only managed 10 points in a game they were expected to win. But again, 16.1 fantasy points is a solid outing, and it was good enough to be the RB19 in PPR scoring. However, if we look beyond the box score, it's so easy to see that this is the absolute floor for Bijan Robinson. His role and usage were everything we were hoping for coming into the season. First of all, he dominated the running back snaps. There was no more playing around with Tyler Algier like we were seeing last year. Robinson was on the field for 89% of the snaps, and he accounted for 85.7% of the running back rush attempts. And in the passing game, Robinson ran a route on 78.6% of the dropbacks, and he had a 19.2% target share. This is why we were drafting him. He just didn't get the touchdowns, but we can expect he'll get those scores in future weeks. Remember, this was week 1 against the Steelers defense in a game that Kirk Cousins was clearly rusty coming off the Achilles injury. Things will only go up from here for the offense, and that's going to give us those league-winning performances that we're banking on for Bijan Robinson. It was all about Alec Pierce in week 1. Pierce was on the receiving end of 2 Anthony Richardson bombs. And Ashton Dulin also took a pass 54 yards to the house. That didn't leave much else for wide receiver 1, Michael Pittman. 3 massive chunk plays like that are great for real life, but it takes away so many opportunities from the other pieces in the offense. And unfortunately, in this case, for our purposes, it was the ones that matter that got boxed out. Rather than getting that 50-plus yards in one play, normally that yardage would have been attained over several plays. That's part of why we only saw 19 pass attempts from Anthony Richardson, and why we saw such few plays from an offense that was at the top of the league in plays per game last year. So the box score looked kind of sad for Michael Pittman. He only had 4 catches for 31 yards, but his role as the alpha in Indianapolis has not changed. He still commanded a massive 42.1% target share. In comparison, Alec Pierce's big day came on a 15.8% target share. There will be much better days ahead for Michael Pittman. I liked him coming into the season, and now the price to acquire him has dropped. His quarterback looked good in week 1, and the flow of the game is going to normalize moving forward. Coinciding with a breakout performance from Jameson Williams was a quiet night from Amon-Ra St. While Williams was picking up chunk plays, Amon-Ra was held to 3 catches for 13 yards. But based on history and everything we believed coming into the season, this is a one-off performance from Amon-Ra, and he'll be back dominating the box score in future weeks. He still received a healthy 21.4% target share. Weird things happen in week 1. We see it every year. This is just another example. St. Brown's coming off a 1,500-yard season. He's been targeted 90 or more times in every year of his career. He's a dominant route runner, and he's an alpha in this Lions offense. Nothing has changed except now defense is going to have to worry about Jameson Williams and key on him more than they have in the past. And that means less attention they're going to be able to put on Amon-Ra St. So if whoever drafted him in your league is feeling a little bit of buyer's remorse, shoot them an offer and get yourself a top 5 wide receiver. And if you do believe we get a bounce back performance from Amon-Ra St. against a banged up Bucs secondary in week 2, then you can play this pick'em on Underdog. Lock in your pick now and use promo code YARDSPER for a free pick plus a deposit offer of up to $1,000. That's promo code YARDSPER on Underdog. Let's get it. There were a lot of questions about the Bills wide receiver core coming into the season. That led us to Dalton Kincaid, who had a strong finish to his rookie season and was looking like the best pass catcher in that offense. Then week 1 happens and Dalton Kincaid is targeted twice and ends the day with 11 yards. However, I'm not ready to move off my preseason stance just yet. This was just a weird game. Josh Allen only threw the ball 23 times. He attempted fewer than 25 passes just 2 times all of last season. And it was clear the Cardinals came to the same conclusion that I did on these Bills pass catchers. They put a lot of emphasis on limiting Dalton Kincaid in this game. In fact, there are several clips showing the Cardinals keying in on Dalton Kincaid and completely eliminating him from the play with multiple, sometimes 2, 3, 4 defenders. And while we still need better than an 8.7% target share from Dalton Kincaid, he still ran a route on 83.3% of Josh Allen's dropbacks, which was nearly double that of fellow tight end Dawson Knox. Hopefully the other weapons in the offense showed enough to deter future defenses from keying in on Dalton Kincaid as much as the Cardinals did. I'm still confident that Dalton Kincaid's going to be a top 3 tight end when everything shakes out. It's just 1 week. And we saw pretty much every one of the top drafted tight ends struggle in week 1, not just Dalton Kincaid. So I'm buying low wherever I can. This is a great offense with a great quarterback, and Dalton Kincaid's going to be a big part of that. The Raiders made it clear that rookie tight end Brock Bowers is going to be a big part of this offense in 2024. Not only did he score 11.8 fantasy points and finish as a tight end 3 on the week, but Bowers led the team in targets and receptions. That's on a team that also includes Davante Adams. Bowers had a 24.4% target share, and he ran a route on 77.5% of the dropbacks. The quarterback situation is shaky, and the offense overall is subpar, but Bowers is going to be one of the few bright spots in Vegas this season. And even though he did score as the tight end 3 on the week, 11.8 fantasy points doesn't jump off the page and scream breakout. So he is still absolutely attainable in trade. If you drafted David Njoku or Jake Ferguson, or you punted the position, Brock Bowers is a great trade target that can give you steady production. Before we get to my sells for week 2, let's go rapid fire mode through a few more guys I'm targeting in trades. Let's start with Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram only had 1 catch for 5 yards, but it was a low volume passing day for Trevor Lawrence and company. Ingram still played his usual role and had a healthy 19% target share. He's going to be just fine. DeShaun Watson might be toast, but Jerome Ford is a bell cow running back for the foreseeable future. Not only did he play 75% of the snaps and take 85.7% of the running back rush attempts, but he also had a 15.6% target share. That's about as elite of a role as it gets for a running back in today's NFL. We want Jerome Ford on our teams. Better days are coming for Drake London. It was 1 week with a rusty quarterback against a difficult defense. He still ran 100% of the snaps. Better days are coming. DeShaun Watson looked bad, but the pass attempts were still there. He attempted 45 passes. And Amari Cooper commanded targets as usual with 9, and he ran a route on 100% of DeShaun Watson's dropbacks. The Browns are not going to have to go against the Cowboys defense every week, so things should go up from here. Bryce Young is atrocious, but Deontay Johnson should be heavily targeted most weeks. It'll also help that they're going to be in comeback mode most of the time. Johnson won't win you your league, but he should at least return value at the low cost it will take to acquire him right now. 68% of Bucky Irving's production came in garbage time. Rashad White gives us the receiving production that is so valuable for fantasy football. In fact, he had more receptions and more receiving yards than Mike Evans in week 1. That role is not going away. As we head into our sells for week 2, if you find this video valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. Who are you buying? Who are you selling in week 2? And my first sell for week 2 is Stefon Diggs. I know it was a great Texans debut. He got 6 passes and he scored 2 touchdowns. And his 21.9 fantasy points were enough to finish as the wide receiver 9 on the week. That's exactly why you drafted him, right? He's been a stud wide receiver for years. He has a fresh start in Houston, and he's paired one of the NFL's best young quarterbacks. However, there are some causes for concerns when we look a little bit closer. That's because while Diggs did receive a healthy 6 targets, it only worked out to an 18.8% target share. That's partly because the Texans ran a ton of plays in week 1, a volume that likely won't be repeatable. And not only that, but both Nico Collins and Tank Dell still out-targeted him. And they both also had more receiving yards. The 2 touchdowns were cool, but how often is Stefon Diggs going to score 2 times in one game? Especially with the target competition in that offense. He only had 33 receiving yards. That's not going to get the job done if they're not coming in the red zone and resulting in multiple touchdowns. The Texans were not targeting Diggs down the field. Instead, they were feeding him short throws, which is why the yardage was so low. We need more down the field looks if we're going to get any sort of upside production. It seems, however, that the Texans have designated Nico Collins and Tank Dell to get the majority of those routes. So if I'm rostering Stefon Diggs, I'm approaching the managers in my league who are not going to look beyond the box score. They're just going to see that wide receiver 9 production, those 2 touchdowns, and they're going to pay a wide receiver 1 price to take them off my hands. There's been a lot of Tony Pollard hype after his Titans debut resulted in 18.4 fantasy points and an RB12 finish. However, I'm putting Tony Pollard on the trade block in leagues where I roster him. I'm just not convinced that this is what we're going to get moving forward. We debated all summer which Titans running back is the one to target in drafts. Is it Tony Pollard? Is it Tajay Spears? And then even the Titans offensive coordinator came out and said it's going to be a 50-50 split. And that was just last week. Obviously, that's not what happened in week 1, and it does appear that Tony Pollard is going to be the better running back from Tennessee for fantasy purposes, but I don't think it's going to be as clear-cut as it was against the Bears. While Pollard had a healthy lead in carries, Tyjae Spears still played nearly 50% of the snaps. He also ran more routes, and he equaled Tony Pollard's 4 targets and 12% target share. Tyjae Spears is not going away. He's going to continue to operate as the clear third down and receiving back, and he'll probably earn more carries as well. We've seen week 1 usage flip before. Weird things happen in week 1. I keep saying this. So let's give it a little bit of time before we crown Tony Pollard a bell cow. We also know the Titans are going to be trailing in games more often than not, which means more passing situations and more Tyjae Spears, which of course means less Tony Pollard. And that's likely going to begin in week 2 with a tough matchup against the Jets. So with that said, I'm putting my league mates on notice. I'm taking offers for Tony Pollard. Let's crank it back up to rapid fire mode for 2 more sells before we get out of here. Starting with Keenan Allen, who had an elite target share, but he lacked the production in week 1. He looked banged up throughout that game. If he's going to produce at a high level at all this year, it's going to be early in the season. We knew that coming in, and we already lost week 1. Eventually, the rookie Rome Odunze, who actually ran more routes than Keenan Allen in week 1, is going to break out and box out the veteran. I warned you before the season that Gerald Everett is going to be a problem for Cole Kmet. And in week 1, Gerald Everett was a problem for Cole Kmet. They both had the same number of targets, but Gerald Everett doubled Cole Kmet's routes. So on top of having to deal with DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, and DeAndre Swift for target competition, while playing with a rookie quarterback, Cole Kmet is also now losing opportunities to Gerald Everett. So if I can't sell him, I'm just going to drop him.